man in the truck. It looked like a beat up version of the man he met on the way to the derailment. He got the man's driver's license when the sheriff's deputy showed up. The way my uncle put it was your dad almost passed out and had to sit down. He didn't say why because you don't do that around railroad men. 2. My uncle was walking the rails, which you do to prevent derailments and such, and he had to pee. So he went into some woods. He said he walked up onto what he was sure was some kind of animal sacrifice weird crap. He called the other workers to see it and they were very creeped out. They just left and tried to make a joke of it. 3. The number of drunk hobos homeless people who pass out on the rails is oddly high. 4. Also, a hobo was found dead in a hopper car, the kind that are open and typically hold grain. They figured since it was the summer he wanted more air circulation and hopped in that one. Well, the car was filled and no one really looks in it. It wasn't figured out until the car was unloaded. My brother-in-law oversees the maintenance of all kinds of trains. I asked him this very question a while ago. He said that all sorts of weird crap ends up on the front of trains. Most notably he once had to remove a human head embedded in the front. Where the rest of the body is, we'll probably never know. My dad works on the trains in Northern California. Quite a few years ago the foreman of the shop told him to check out the underside of the train and clear any debris. Wild dogs frequently get hit by the trains and can sometimes cause problems. A few minutes with a flashlight and my dad sees part of a skull with long brown hair attached. Turns out the train had hit a drunk from a nearby homeless camp that had passed out on the tracks and the wild dogs kept getting hit because they were eating the poor bastard. Well, I'm not in the railroad industry, but my buddy is a conductor and while he was driving his train a girl ran out of a chapel in her wedding dress right onto the tracks. And well, you know the ending. He was in therapy for quite a while. I looked everywhere in my drive for the photo, but I can't find it. I was working at a BNSF railway in Stockton, CA maintaining the cranes that pull cars off the tracks when a freight engine rolled in with the front end a little caved in, covered in red, but the entire front end was covered in what appeared to be red bloody chunks. A paste left over from rolling through maybe a herd of cattle, or a horde of zombies. I didn't know what to think. I felt my stomach churn, and my co-worker turned green and heaved a bit. I asked the foreman what happened. He told me some teenager jumped out in front of it. Later, I grew a pair and walked up to it as these folks were cleaning it without any signs of being affected by the sight. Turns out the train hit a stalled fiberglass trailer filled with tomatoes that was headed to the Hunt's Cannery in Oakdale. Best friend works as an engineer conductor track inspector for a small railroad. Not anything scary, but the worst I heard about is when one of the elevators they work with had a silo explode while someone was on top of or in it. I don't remember which. Also, the stories of workers slipping and getting run over by the train, not doing things safely tend to scare the daylights out of me. One time they caught a kid dragging his bike across the tracks, underneath of the train. They only saw him in the mirror when they started to move and he scurried out, and the head guy hopped off and chewed the kid out. Class 1 freight conductor. A few things. 16-year-old with his head and shoulders 50 feet up the track, with his body laying beside the track next to us. Friday night yard job we saw two males freaking in the middle of a tunnel, just crap-faced, trying to wave us by like we were not a train on tracks. Just laid on the whistle until they left. I remember Ray crewing a train that had killed someone, and spending an hour looking in the bush for their hand. I didn't find it, then stepping in something that was red with hair. Going north we hit a moose, not too far from the bunkhouse. Called up on the radio. Someone came down and grabbed it, cleaned it up and we all ate it that night. I'm sure there is more, but it all blends in after a while. Takes a lot to stand out. Weird, yes. I was privileged enough to see the locally famous pounder. We're traveling down the tracks when my engineer spots a dirt bike up ahead by some large bushes. How that's weird. No one around. As we are both looking out my side of the cab.